Welcome back to Cinema Flicks Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. The least I can do today is continue on with our look back at my favourite albums of last year. As before, all honourable mentions until we get to my top 5. Someone asked where I'm going to be drawing the line. Is it going to be January? Is it going to be a top 20? Is it going to be blah blah? I bought brand new albums, so not just vintage albums and reissues and things. Brand new albums last year, well over 100. So narrowing it down, I got to about 60. I'm probably going to end up doing a top 50. I might not do 50 videos, but if I do, they will be shorter and sweeter, like I've been doing. So you can dip in and out whenever you fancy, rather than just list off 50 album titles and you don't really have time to digest anything. However, today we're going to be looking at this album here, Palomino by First Aid Kit, the fourth album by First Aid Kit, the Swedish folk duo made up of Johanna and Clara, the Soderbergh sisters, and this is their first to be recorded in Stockholm, and it's their first since their kind of breakthrough album in the UK, Ruins, in 2018. So it's been a good few years. Ruins was a very downbeat album, written after Johanna had a very bad breakup. This, Vault-Face, 180 degree turnaround. This is upbeat. This is it's still folky and there's downer moments on it, but there's always a little glint in the eye at the end rather than a tear falling from it. So even in the sadder moments, there's always a look towards tomorrow. How best to describe First Aid Kit? The harmonies of the sisters are Fleetwood Mac like, which isn't I think it's lazy sometimes to describe great harmonies in terms of, if it's guys, call them Everleys, if it's girls, do Fleetwood Mac, if it's blah blah blah. But no, uncannily so sometimes, and it has that wonderful sisterly quality where when one knows to go a bit higher, one knows to go a bit lower, and they sound like one entity. It's a fantastic harmony duo, and they were raised on Americana. And this is the album that kind of shows that best. In fact, they made their name at first. They were discovered by doing a cover of a Fleet Foxes single, which makes you feel rather old to think that Fleet Foxes were vintage for these girls when they were young. I still think of Fleet Foxes as quite modern. But hopefully it was their first album and I'm not as old as I think. But this album is definitely the most accessible and deserves to be a big breakthrough for them. I'm glad to see it's made quite a few people's lists and quite a few notable journals lists for the end of the year, because this is a more ambitious and more direct attempt to make a pop rock album, and they succeed massively. Your opener here is it's that dark blue on black writing that you just can't. Out of My Mind is absolutely sensational synthy pop, but it's dark as heck. Out of My Head, excuse me. See, that's how dark the writing is that you can't even read it. And I was a bit worried at first because I thought, they're going. I mean, obviously, I've had quite a lot of synth pop on this list already, and I'm going to have more. But I don't want everyone to embrace synth pop just because it's the sound du jour. And what made them unique was the acoustic based things and the folk based things and how they modernised that. Worry ye not. Because that's really the only time that comes into play on this album. They actually, I mean, first of all, it's a great song anyway. It's fantastic. But elsewhere, they find other ways to play around sonically. Angel is a standout single. It's just phenomenal stuff with sensational sword vocals. Ready to Run sounds like it could be, again, straight out of Rumours, the self-titled Fleetwood Mac. We're not into Tusk territory here, it's all kind of happy at the moment. Turning On To You is perhaps the most country tinged, and I love that the chorus is basically just a harmony, kind of a cappella nonsense, just a kind of and then a kind of country twang. There's not words to the chorus. It's more of an a cappella noise. Fallen Snow is absolutely gorgeous. It's got that, when John Cale slowed down the violin playing on the Velvet Underground stuff, like on Venus and Furs. It's got that kind of quality to it, where it's dark if you want to hear it that way, it's sexy if you want to hear it that way, but it certainly sets some moods and adds a great tone to it. That adds a lot here too. So it's not John Cale playing, but it certainly adds a lot. It's very similar to his playing. The standout track for me comes up next. It's Wild Horses 2, and it's a track about a couple bickering in the car over who did the best version of Wild Horses. So the chorus goes, we played Wild Horses on the car stereo. You prefer the Rolling Stones and I like Grams. Brilliant. No attempt to make it rhyme, just go with that. Just go with that. And again, it shows their influences. Believe me, they're much more influenced by Gram Parsons, Flying Burrito Brothers, than they were by the Rolling Stones. Nobody Knows. They add a big orchestra onto things, so if you want, you can see this as, if this is Harvest, then Nobody Knows is their Man Needs a Maid, or There's a World, where things become massive and overblown. But you get trumpet gradually added on, and you get, as I said, violin gradually added on, and that all comes organically. So it's not like track 2, we just add on more instruments, track 3, boom, everything's there. It feels like we're adding something on. It's a bit like, remember at the start of Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads documentary concert film, where the band gradually come on stage, and it starts just with David Byrne. It's a bit like that, where it feels like you're adding something sonically on each time. It works phenomenally well. It's a really well sequenced album. I don't think it would work as well if you resequenced it. And to add to their 70s cred, look what they're wearing and everything. They really have an old school style, given that 70s vibe. And look at the CD, even it's got this that kind of colour palette that we all remember from. Even going into the 80s, because obviously people don't just at the stroke of midnight change their house at the turn of a decade, do they? I'm sure I remember my grandparents, everything seemed to be brown, right through to the 90s. Anyway, this is just a phenomenal album. The closing track is the title track, Palomino, and it's as close to Tom Petty at its peak as you will hear, even though it's two ladies singing. Johanna and Clara make this track, Palomino, that just sounds like, God, I can hear Tom Petty doing that, no problem whatsoever. So again, just add this to the ongoing list that we're curating here of, well, there's no good new music anymore. Yes, there is. Just dig a little deeper and don't expect it from the same old. There's nothing on here that's going to put you off. There's no auto-tune. There's not computers doing the job here. It's good old songcraft. It's instrumentation. It's playing. It's picking the right people to do the right jobs. It sounds phenomenal. So well-produced records, well engineered, well mixed, again well sequenced, and bloody well done. Yeah. So to the ladies, thank you very much for this. This was a charm of an album, an absolute privilege and a delight. So thank you very much for that, and I look forward to keeping up with what you're doing next. So First Aid Kit, Palomino, joint 6th on our counting time. So, well, stay very safe out there. Until next time, folks. Love and mercy.